felt more like a prison. My parents, Naoma and Richard, weren't cruel, but they didn't get me. That's when I met Ron. It was at a party. I wasn't even supposed to be at it. He wasn't like anyone I'd ever met before. Tall, pale, and intense, with these dark, deep-set eyes that seemed to see straight into your soul. He wasn't just different, he was magnetic. People hovered around him, hanging on every word. I started seeing him more after that night. At first, it was just harmless curiosity. He talked about freedom, about breaking away from the chains of society. It sounded so dramatic, so ridiculous, but also so exciting. Rod wasn't just talking. He believed he was a vampire. He said it so seriously, with such conviction, that you couldn't laugh. "We're immortals," he'd say, "unbound by their rules, eternal, free." I thought it was just a metaphor, a weird theatrical way of saying he didn't fit in. But then I saw the cuts on his arms. He'd sliced his skin open with a blade and let the blood drip into a goblet, his movements slow and ritualistic. He'd close his eyes, whispering words I didn't understand, like he was summoning something. Then he'd drink. His followers would do the same, each taking their turn to sip from the goblet. They'd lick their lips, their eyes glassy, almost euphoric. It wasn't just blood, it was power to them. "Do you want to taste eternity?" he asked me once, holding the goblet out. I shook my head, my stomach twisting, but the others, they lapped it up. Rod's
family
was a group of outcasts who clung to him like moths to a flame. They wore black, painted their nails, and sharpened their teeth into fangs. Their skin was pale, almost sickly from avoiding the sun. At night, they'd gather in abandoned buildings or deep in the woods. They called it the
Ritual of Awakening.
Candles would burn in a circle, casting shadows that seemed to dance on their own. They'd chant in low, guttural tones, words that just felt wrong to hear. One night, I saw them kill a bird, a small, trembling thing they'd caught in the woods. Rod held it in his hands, whispering something to it like a prayer. Then, with a swift motion, he snapped its neck. Blood dripped onto the ground as the others knelt, pressing their foreheads to the dirt, murmuring, "We drink to the night." It was horrifying. It was hypnotic. And I couldn't look away. Rod made me feel seen. My parents didn't care what I wanted or who I was. But Rod, he listened. He understood. "They'll never let you be who you are," he'd say, his voice low and hypnotic. "They're holding you back, Heather, but I can set you free." At first, I didn't take it seriously, but then the fights with my parents got worse. They didn't like the new friends I was hanging out with, the late nights, the lies.
"You're throwing your life away!"
My mom screamed one night after I snuck back in. Maybe she was right, but I didn't care. One night I broke down. I told Rod I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted out. "They're the reason you're miserable," he said. "They're your cage." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I'll help you escape," he promised, his eyes glinting in the dark. "But freedom has a cost." The night it happened, I wasn't supposed to be awake. Rod told me to leave the back door unlocked. "I'll take care of everything," he said. I thought he meant we'd run away, but then I heard it. The creak of the door, the sound of heavy boots on the floor. I stayed in my room, frozen, my heart pounding. And then came the first thud. It was loud, sickening, like a wet slap. I heard my father yell, a short, sharp cry that was cut off too soon. I crept to the edge of the hallway and my breath caught in my throat. That's when I saw Rod. He was standing over my father's body, a crowbar in his hands. Blood dripped from its end, pooling around my dad's head. I gasped before I could stop myself. Rod turned, his face lit with something between triumph and madness. "It's done," he said. "You're free now." But it wasn't done. My mom was still alive. She was crawling toward me, her hands smearing blood across the carpet.
Help me.
She choked, her voice barely a whisper. But Rod didn't stop. He raised the crowbar again and brought it down with a sickening crunch. I screamed, but no sound came out. We fled that night. Rod and the others piled into a car, laughing like it was all some grand adventure. But I couldn't stop shaking. I couldn't close my eyes without seeing their faces. My dad's lifeless eyes, my mom's outstretched hand, the blood, it was everywhere. Rod kept saying he did it for me, that we were free now, that we could start our
Eternal life.
together. But I didn't feel free. I felt trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from.